Young man, big mass in the front of the chest, feeling unwell, losing a little weight. That's lymphoma, right?
That's exactly what the question wants you to think, and it's wrong. By the end of this, you'll be able to take any anterior mediastinal mass and name the diagnosis from 2 lab values. Let's build it. Here's the whole case first. Picture it, then we take it apart. A 24-year-old man, 6 weeks of a dry cough, and a heavy, full feeling in the center of his chest. A little worse lying down. Over the past month, tender swelling of both breasts, fatigue, and drenching night sweats. On exam, he has gynecomastia. The rest of the exam is unremarkable. A chest CT shows a large mass in the anterior mediastinum. Blood work shows markedly elevated AFP and beta-hCG. The question, what is the most likely diagnosis? Hold that whole picture. Now let's reason it out. We heard the whole story. Now take it apart. And don't start with the diagnosis. Start with where the mass sits.
Wait, the gynecomastia and the night sweats are both loud. Don't they point somewhere?
They pull in opposite directions on purpose. Gynecomastia points at a hormone maker. Night sweats point at lymphoma. Park both. A clue is only worth what a discriminator says it's worth. The mass itself can press on the airway and the great vessels. Facial or neck swelling and distended neck veins would mean it's squeezing the superior vena cava. Serious, but that still doesn't tell you what it is.
So, where do we actually start?
Localize. Anterior, middle, or posterior. That's the first filter. Split the mediastinum into 3. Anterior in front of the heart and great vessels. Middle, the heart, airways, and big vessels themselves. Posterior, back by the spine. Each compartment has its own short list. Posterior is mostly neurogenic tumors, nerve root and sympathetic chain lesions. Middle is vascular and cystic, lymph nodes, and foregut cysts like a bronchogenic cyst.
So a bronchogenic cyst isn't even an anterior mass problem.
Right? Different neighborhood. Hold that, it quietly kills one of our options later. And anterior, that's our patient, has a famous 4-item list. The anterior mediastinum is the 4 T's: thymoma, teratoma, and the other germ cell tumors, thyroid, like a substernal goiter, and terrible lymphoma.
So lymphoma is legitimately on the list. Young patient anterior mass, it really fits.
It fits the pattern. Fitting the pattern is not the same as being the answer. We now need something that separates these 4. That something is in the blood. The lab's 2 tumor markers are up: alpha-fetoprotein, AFP, and beta-hCG.
Before we use them, what actually makes these markers?
Great question, because the source is the whole logic. AFP is made by yolk sac and embryonal tumor tissue. Beta-hCG is made by trophoblast tissue, the same cells that run wild in choriocarcinoma.
And the gynecomastia.
That's the beta-hCG. hCG pushes the testis to make estrogen, and estrogen gives you gynecomastia. The clue and the lab are one story. The tumor is pumping out beta-hCG. One more you'll see, LDH. It's nonspecific. It just tracks how much tumor is there. Useful for bulk, useless for telling these 4 apart.
So AFP and beta-hCG are the ones that discriminate.
Exactly. Markers turn a guessing game into a rule. Now let's answer. Full question. A young man, a large anterior mediastinal mass, AFP and beta-hCG both elevated. Most likely diagnosis: seven choices. I'll read them because you might be listening. Benign teratoma, bronchogenic cyst, Hodgkin lymphoma, nonseminomatous germ cell tumor, seminoma, thymoma, or a substernal thyroid goiter?
Pick your answer now, before the reveal. This is the part that makes it stick.
The answer is D, a nonseminomatous germ cell tumor.
2 markers are up. Where do I even start?
Start with the one that discriminates. AFP. Elevated AFP means the tumor contains nonseminomatous tissue. That single value carries the answer.
Why does AFP get the final say and not beta-hCG?
Because of how the germ cell family is built. Let me show you the family tree. This is the part that makes seminoma versus nonseminomatous click. Germ cell tumors split into 2 branches, seminoma on one side, everything else, nonseminomatous, on the other. Nonseminomatous is a family: embryonal carcinoma, yolk sac tumor, choriocarcinoma, teratoma, and mixed tumors with several of these together.
And each one has its own marker?
Yes, yolk sac and embryonal make AFP, choriocarcinoma and trophoblast make beta-hCG. So a nonseminomatous tumor can raise AFP, beta-hCG, or both. Now the key line: pure seminoma makes neither AFP nor much else. Beta-hCG can be mildly up in some seminomas, but AFP is never elevated in a pure seminoma.
So an elevated AFP is basically a signature.
It's the signature of nonseminomatous tissue. Even if a tumor looks like seminoma under the microscope, an elevated AFP means there's a nonseminomatous component, and it's managed as nonseminomatous. AFP up, the seminoma door is closed.
Before we move on, anything I should physically check in this young man?
Yes, and it's high yield. The mediastinum can be an extragonadal primary, but a mediastinal germ cell tumor can also be a metastasis from a testicular one. So examine the testes and image them if there's any doubt.
Same tumor, 2 possible homes.
Exactly. And one board favorite link: primary mediastinal nonseminomatous germ cell tumors are associated with Klinefelter syndrome, a 47XXY man. A hint of tall stature or hypogonadism in the stem is the nudge.
So this mass could be the first sign of Klinefelter.
It can be. 2 facts, both high yield, both free points if you carry them in.
So I didn't actually need most of the story.
That's the move. We didn't match the entire vignette to a diagnosis. We found the one feature only one branch survives. Markers beat the pattern.
And the 2 loud clues from the start.
Look what happened to them. The gynecomastia was pointing right here. It was the beta-hCG. The night sweats felt just as loud and went nowhere. Same volume, opposite worth. Under time pressure, that's the whole game. Find the feature that splits the options and don't get seduced by a story that feels like a diagnosis.
Okay, take the other 6 apart. I want to know why each one is there.
Best distractor in the set. Seminoma is a germ cell tumor and it can nudge beta-hCG up, so half the story fits. But pure seminoma never raises AFP. The elevated AFP takes it off the table. This one option is the entire point of the question.
If I only remember one thing,
Remember this: AFP separates seminoma from nonseminomatous. Full stop. Now the lymphoma you jump to, and this patient's night sweats make it even more tempting. Nodular sclerosing. Hodgkin loves young adults and the anterior mediastinum, and night sweats are a classic B symptom.
that's almost this patient.
Almost. But Hodgkin makes no AFP and no beta-hCG. The markers rule it out. You'd confirm it on biopsy with Reed-Sternberg cells, not on these labs. That's the trap the hook warned you about. A mature teratoma is anterior and germ cell in origin. It can even contain hair, teeth, or fat on imaging. But mature teratoma is benign and secretes no markers.
So the elevated markers argue against a plain benign teratoma.
Right? Markers up means there's active nonseminomatous tissue, not a quiet, mature teratoma. Thymoma is the classic anterior T, but it's a different world. It skews to middle-aged and older adults, and it travels with myasthenia gravis and sometimes pure red cell aplasia, or low antibodies.
And no markers.
No AFP, no beta-hCG. Wrong age, wrong markers. And the cyst? Remember compartments. A bronchogenic cyst is a foregut cyst of the middle mediastinum. Benign, fluid-filled, marker negative.
Wrong neighborhood and wrong labs.
2 independent reasons it's out. That's usually the throwaway option. There to reward knowing your compartments.
And the 7th one, a thyroid goiter. That's the 4th T.
It is, and a substernal goiter can press on the airway just like this. But it's benign thyroid tissue, no AFP, no beta-hCG. It skews older, and on imaging it's usually continuous with the thyroid in the neck.
So the markers drop it too.
Same rule, same work. Every marker negative option falls to the elevated AFP and beta-hCG.
Let's stress test the rule. What flips the answer?
Change one value at a time. Same young man, same anterior mass, but now AFP is normal and only beta-hCG is mildly up. Now seminoma is genuinely back in play.
And if both markers are normal?
Then you're back to the marker-negative anterior masses. Think thymoma, lymphoma, a mature teratoma, or a thyroid goiter. And biopsy or imaging decides.
What if the mass were posterior instead?
Different list entirely, neurogenic tumors. And if the patient were older, you'd weight thymoma, lymphoma, and thyroid more heavily. One variable, and the whole differential shifts. That's how you know the framework is real. It's not one fact. It's a machine you can turn.
Is this just an exam trick, or do the markers matter after diagnosis?
They matter for real. The same AFP and beta-hCG are followed during treatment. If the right therapy is working, the markers should fall. They're a diagnosis tool and a response tool. And the reassuring part, germ cell tumors are among the more treatable solid tumors, even when they're large, which is exactly why getting the diagnosis right matters. Carry 2 rules out of here. First, the content. Young adult, anterior mediastinal mass, check AFP and beta-hCG. Either one up, it's a germ cell tumor. AFP up means nonseminomatous. Seminoma never raises AFP. Second, the exam skill. Find the single feature that splits the options and answer that, not the story that merely feels familiar.
So, the fix for the trap was to stop matching the story and find the one number that decides.
Every time, localize it, read the markers, find the discriminator. See you in the next one.